The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Let me just say, after video distorting the belt, they're proclaiming the real world champion. I'm going to tell y'all, with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life. When you walk around this world and you tell everybody you're number one, the only way you get to stay number one is to be number one.
Hi, everybody. Good evening or good morning, rather. Welcome to Monday and May the 15th, 2022. Hope everybody had a 2023. Hope everybody had a great weekend. I know I did. Welcome to the Captain Lou Extravaganza on the Captain Lou Sports Network. We are powered up by Belly Up Sports, and we invite you to join us here each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, as we'll get you up to date on what's going on in the world of sports. We got a lot to talk about. You can find us on our YouTube channel, the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube, as well as you can find us on our Facebook page, which is the Captain Lou Extravaganza, or also on our Twitter handle, which is at the Real Captain Lou. Or again, as I mentioned, you can follow us on my personal page at Lewis Gamlin. Drop me a line as well on my email page, which is sweetlou1965 at yahoo.com. And again, we are powered up by Belly Up Sports. Check out our website, bellyupsports.com, as we've got a complete list of podcasts that we have throughout the week, throughout the year, covering all the sports that you can think of, from lacrosse to Major League Baseball to the Stanley Cup playoffs, pro wrestling, you name it. We have got it all handled here on bellyupsports.com. And also check out the latest article on these sports that are going on with our great group of writers. The guys and gals do a wonderful job here on Belly Up Sports, covering all the sports in print, on social media, and of course on our podcast. So we invite you to check all those out as well. Want to thank Chase Thornton for having me on his Fantasy Live sportscast yesterday morning, talking win totals in the NFL. We will later on in the show give you our NFC North projections for win totals, and it may surprise you a little bit when you look at the schedules. Now, I know it's May 15th, and everybody's got their own opinion. Everybody's optimistic, but I'm going to give you my take on with the win totals in the NFC North, with the Lions, the Vikings, the Bears, and the Packers. And like I said, they may surprise you as well. Also, we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs, obviously, the NHL, the Stanley Cup playoffs, with Philadelphia collapsing again, Doc Rivers not being able to come through in the clutch again in Game 7, and Joel Embiid placing the blame on everybody else but himself. We'll talk about that. Also, we'll talk about the Lakers. They pushed through the Golden State Warriors the other night. Now they're in the Western Conference Finals starting tomorrow against the Denver Nuggets, which should be a great, great series as well. And then we'll talk about the Eastern Conference Final matchup now. It's Boston and Miami. And can Miami keep that improbable run going? Or is Boston primed for another trip to the NBA Finals? Stanley Cup playoffs, Vegas. They dispatched of Edmonton in 6 games, winning convincingly last night. Jonathan Marchessault with a hat trick, a natural hattie in the second period. And obviously they're the better team. Make no mistake about it. So Vegas, they go on to take on the winner of tonight's Game 7 between the Dallas Stars and the Seattle Kraken. That's going to be a good matchup. We'll preview Game 7 in the Western Conference Final, and also take a quick look ahead at the Eastern Conference Final matchup. It's set. It's the Carolina Hurricanes, who took care of the New Jersey Devils in 5 games. They're going to take on the upstart Florida Panthers. Paul Maurice's squad, the Rat Squad, if you will, they easily took care of Toronto in 5 games. Toronto, where do they go from here? You know, all the talent that they've got, They can't seem to put it together. They don't have that winning edge yet. And I don't know if they're reading their own press clippings or counting their money, whatever. But, if you're a Toronto fan, I feel bad for you. I don't know what else that the Maple Leafs can do. They've got all this young talent. Now, do you keep it? We'll talk about that a little later on as well. We want to remind you that we are brought to you, as always, here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza on the Captain Lou Sports Network by MahlerBros.com. Check out their website. If you want to look good on the golf course, what I always say, if you look good, you feel good. You feel good, you'll play good. And no better way to do that than to go to MahlerBros.com. Use the promo code BELLYUP for 15% off your first purchase or your purchase. That's MahlerBros.com. Use the promo code BELLYUP for 15% off your purchase. So again, we want to thank them for being a sponsor here on Belly Up Sports and also on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Again, it's Monday, May the 15th. Glad you could be with us here this morning. We got a great show planned for you. We've got a great week lined up on Wednesday and Friday. We've got some great guests coming on the show. Folks that have been on the Captain Lou Extravaganza on a few episodes, and we are looking forward to reaching out to them. We'll tell you a little bit more about that as well a little bit later on in the show. Well, let's get going. Let's start talking about the NBA playoffs first and foremost. Game 7 last night, the only one that went on in the second round of the NBA final, or the NBA second round, and it was Philadelphia and Boston. This has been a rivalry renewed, if you will, from back in the 80s when it was a little more cutthroat, in my opinion. It just, I don't know, with the players getting along, a lot of them sharing the same agent now. They hang out more in the offseason. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It just doesn't seem like the hated rivalry that it may have been back 30 and 40 years ago or whatever, back when I was younger. But they got together for a 7-game series. Philadelphia had a 3-2 lead, and it looked like they had Boston by the jugular in Game 6 with Jason Tatum pretty much a no-show for the first 3 quarters of Game 6. Well, he came alive in Game 7, and boy, did he, or in the fourth quarter of Game 6, helping Boston get over the hump in Philadelphia to force a Game 7. And man, oh man, did he take command. What was it? 56-56, I believe, in the third quarter. And a little back and forth. It looked like Boston or Philadelphia may, be able, they were hanging with them in Boston, which, like I say, back in the day, a Game 7 in Boston was pretty much, if you're the road team, forget about it. How many times did it take Detroit to get over the hump at the Boston Garden back in the 80s? The Chicago Bulls. It just, you pretty much had to steal one in Boston in Game 1 or Game 3. And that's what made me think Philadelphia stealing Game 1 in Boston. I thought, with them with home court, they had the opportunity to do it. Boy, oh boy, Jason Tatum took over, had a game for the ages, 51 points last night. And, he was able to help carry Boston, which turned out to be a rather easy Game 7, 112-88, the final score. And now everybody's wondering, another Game 7 collapse. Philadelphia, they're mired in that right now. They're stuck. Should have beat Toronto a few years ago. They can't get past the second round. And what Doc Rivers now has lost 10 Game 7s as a head coach. But okay, Doc Rivers, I've been on here. I've had guests on here that have a lot more basketball knowledge than I do, saying that Doc Rivers may be a tad overrated as a head coach. Yes, he took Boston to a championship back in 2009, I believe it was. Got to a finals right after that. But boy, in the last 10 to 12 years, he's been in situations with teams with a lot of talent, and he's not able to get them over the hump. Whose fault is it, though, with Philadelphia blowing that 3-2 lead and then going into Game 7 and going into Boston and pretty much laying an egg? Is it James Harden? Is it Joel Embiid? Well, I think you know my answer. It's all on Joel Embiid, in my opinion. Now, he was a no-show pretty much. Him and James Harden, they're the leaders, right? Joel Embiid, he goes on after the game and blames everybody but himself. Says it's not a 2-man game. There are more the players than him and Harden. Well, he's right about the James Harden part. Harden pretty much carried those guys to 2 of their 3 wins in the NBA in that second round against Boston. What did he had? 50 or whatever in the opening game. Then he had 42, or he had 46 in game 1, I believe, and then 42, I believe it was, in game 3 at Philadelphia. I mean, he carried him to 2 of the 3 wins. Yes, he was a no-show in game 7. I mean, he played abysmally in game 7. It didn't look good. It was, and he's a leader. So, with that, heavy is the head that wears the crown. You want to be a leader. You want to get paid all that money. I get it. You got to be one of the guys that show up. But Joel Embiid, you got to ask for it. You've got to want it. And I watched it. I watched the highlights. I watched a good portion of the game. He was non-existent. He was PO'd in game 6 because he didn't touch the ball the last 4 minutes. All right. Maybe Doc Rivers should have made some adjustments, should have went to them and said, hey, you guys got to carry us. But Joel Embiid did not. It just looked like to me that he didn't, he can talk a good game, but it didn't look like he was willing to step up when he had to in game 7. And good players do that. I was listening to Vince Carter earlier this morning talking about some of the teams that he played on, the Nets teams and whatever, the winning teams. And, when he was playing with Jason Kidd and Steve Nash, and they had the mentality, they had the IQ. Good players take over, even when your coach may not have the ability to see it, to let you guys take over. He said that Kidd would come up to him and say, hey, I'm going to give it to you at half court. I'm going to give it to you at the wing. Just a nod and a wink. They had it. It's evident to me that Embiid and James Harden don't have it. And for Joel Embiid to come out after the game and blame everybody but himself, that just shows to me that, he's not mature enough to handle that. And, I'm not saying he has to take all the blame, but don't throw the other guys out on the bus. You're going to tell me that, it's all on Maxey and it's all on Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris has carried you. I looked in that game too, and when Al Horford was dominating Joel Embiid on the defensive end. Now, is Embiid hurt? He better be, because again, if he's that hurt, then I'm assuming he's going to go in for surgery in the next couple of days. He didn't carry that team, and I'm sorry, but it's on Embiid to step up, and he's got to take some of the blame. And James Harden does too, and so does Doc Rivers. Now, the next thing you're going to ask in Philadelphia is Doc Rivers going to be gone? Are they going to fire him? We've seen what happened this weekend with Monty Williams. He's gone. To me, that's a joke. But that's the way it is now in the NBA and in professional sports. You don't get the leash that you used to have, even if you got guaranteed money. It's a win now mentality, man. Everybody's pouring so much money into this. So many trades, Monty Williams gone in Phoenix. Is Doc Rivers going to be next? Budenholzer gone in Milwaukee. Nick Nurse in Toronto. I mean, that revolving door is turning. Eastern Conference final matchup. Now, we mentioned Boston and Miami. That's going to be, is this going to be a letdown series? We talked about it last week when we had Mike Carvallis on, and we kind of mentioned it with Golden State and the Lakers in the Western Conference second round. Now you've got Miami against Boston. Is this going to be a letdown series? I look at Miami. Kudos to the Heat. Again, Eric Spoelstra. What more can you say about him as a head coach? He's got them believing. He's got that winning mentality. And the Knicks don't have it yet. They've got a good core. I think they've got a decent core of young guys. They're probably one big player away from getting over the hump. But this Knicks team reminds me a lot of the Detroit Pistons back in the early '80s before they took that next step and became NBA champions. They're learning. They're young. I thought Brunson played magnificently. I think you can build a team around him. But they're obviously one more big player away. And it leads to my next question: is Tom Thibodeau going to be the man to do that with his style of coaching? How long before they tune that out? The tough guy mentality, defense first. I don't know. But Miami, they've got the elixir in Spoelstra. Obviously, Jimmy Butler. He's one of the top players in the playoffs. He teams to show up, steps up his game, and I think it proved again here. Now they play Boston. It's going to be Boston with the home court advantage. I would have to lean towards the Celtics. I think they've just got a little more talent. I think they're much deeper than Miami. Miami's got a bunch of role players, but I just think that Boston is just going to be, they're going to wear them down, I think, ultimately. I think it could go 6 games, but I've got Boston I think Boston's going to steal one in Miami, actually. Obviously, the key is going to be game 1. If Miami can steal game 1, maybe catch Boston a little tired after playing a 7th game mentally, maybe they can steal one in Boston. And if they can get home court advantage, maybe it'll go 6. But if it goes 7 back to Boston, I don't see the Celtics losing. But I think, actually, I'm going to amend that. I think Boston's going to win this one in 5. I don't know. We'll see if Miami's got enough in the tank. They've got the winning mentality, like I said. We'll have to wait and see. The Lakers, they dispatched Denver. They dispatched Golden State in 6 games. Now we've got our Western Conference Finals set. And Denver right now comes in minus 155 as the favorite. I think the Lakers are plus 125. For those of you Laker fans coming out of the woodwork, probably are going to use that as the disrespect card. I get it. That's the mentality of everybody now. Everybody hates us, whatever. The big matchup I see, though, in the Western Conference Final is going to be Jokic against Davis. I mean, LeBron obviously is going to have a say in it. I get it. As is Jamal Murray. The Laker bench is coming through, but I just think deep down the Nuggets may be a tad more talented, but you've got a guy like LeBron who's been to the finals. He knows what it takes to get all the way there. Denver doesn't have that. Jokic, he's great to me. He was the MVP this year, and he's playing lights out right now. Can the Lakers get a full series out of Anthony Davis? That's always going to be the question. Is he going to be, number one, be able to stay healthy? Number 2, be able to hang with Jokic? I mean, it's going to be back and forth. Can Davis stay out of foul trouble? Can Jokic not be a knucklehead? I mean, those are the 2 questions right there. Can Los Angeles take him out of his game? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that. But that's going to be the matchup that I look at in the Western Conference Finals. And, I honestly, deep down, I think Denver's going to win this one, but I think it might go 7. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers steal one in Denver, but I can see the Denver Nuggets stealing one in LA. They were able to go to Phoenix and steal game 6 or win game 6 to pretty much knot it up. It's going to be interesting. Can the Lakers handle the altitude in Denver? But you've got the power of Los Angeles with being LeBron and Anthony Davis and Jamal Murray and Jokic. Those are the duo matchups. We talked about top 5 duos last week with Mike Carvallis. And here's another example of 2 duos who's going to come through. I've got Denver winning. I think it's going to go to the distance. I think Denver's going to win in 7. But it's going to be another fun series. And again, is this a letdown series? With Los Angeles and Golden State, the marquee names. Is it or now is it going to be with also with like we said with Boston and Philadelphia? Can this live up? Can this compare to the hype of Los Angeles and Golden State? We'll have to wait and see. But it should be a fun watch. I really believe it will. What does Golden State do now? What do they do with Thompson, with Klay Thompson, with Draymond Green? Do they keep him? Jordan Poole. Obviously, there's some friction there. They signed Poole to that big contract. Is he tradable? One of the things that you got to look at next year with Golden State, $71 million will be tied up between Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole. Thompson disappeared in the playoffs. No doubt about it. He had one good game, and that's it. I mean, he's a 34-year-old, but his body, with the injuries that he's gone through, is he going to be able to keep it up? I mean, I still think that Steph Curry is the best shooting guard in the league, if not all time. Do they keep them together for one more run? How do they tweak it? Do they get rid of Wiggins and try to get more capital to make one more run? Capital, I mean ball players. Those are questions that are going to be fun to watch in the offseason with the Golden State Warriors to see if they can maintain. One last question with the Lakers. I want to go back to them for a minute. We talked about the Warriors. Where do they go from here? But does Rob Pelinka, he's been taking so much grief over the last few years. does he get enough credit for putting together this team that they were able to put together at the deadline? Because since the deadline, the Lakers have been playing the best ball in the NBA. And I don't know if he gets enough credit for it. I mean, he should, but I don't know if he does. And I think that with what they've done at the deadline and now the run that they've had, the Lakers, you got to give them credit. I like the trades they made. And so give them his due. And like we mentioned with the Warriors, where do they go from here now? That's going to be an interesting offseason. Steve Kerr came out and said, they didn't have a team built for a championship. What, you read between the lines if you want on that. What do you make of that? Is it easier to say that after you've lost the series to the Lakers? I don't know. They had no answer for Anthony Davis, and that they've got to get something. They've got to find some way to be able to contain a guy like that. So if they didn't have any answer for Anthony Davis, if they were able to have gotten past the Lakers, then they probably wouldn't have had an answer for Jokic either. So anyways, that's it's going to be a fun conference final season right now. They start tomorrow night with Denver and Los Angeles kicking it off in Denver, game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Then on Wednesday, it's going to be Boston and Miami. So we're down to the Final 4 in the NBA. Real quick on the NBA before we go to a quick break, and then we'll talk Stanley Cup playoffs. Ja Morant again. Here's one of the so-called faces of the NBA, one of the young and up-and-coming rising stars. He's in a lot of hot water again for the Instagram post with him flashing a gun. And I see the post, what's wrong with it? There's nothing illegal with it. He didn't shoot it, whatever. Well, you know what? He's been through this before. He got an 8-game suspension, which you can argue if it's too late, whatever. He got a second chance. Some people saying suspending him is wrong. Well, you know what? The NBA is his employer. I don't want to hear he's a kid, he's got to grow up. No. You make one mistake, you get a second chance, boom. You're employed by the NBA. They tell you not to do this. It's not good for the league. We don't like it for our look. That's like with me working I work for Coca-Cola. If I'm out on the clock drinking a Pepsi, it's right in the rules. I get let go. Do I agree with the rule? I don't know, but it's their rule. You got to abide by it. I don't know what else to do for him. You can say he's under a lot of pressure, blah, blah, blah. I get it. He said all the right things in March. He let down the city, whatever. Was he contrite? Right now, it doesn't look like it. He's young enough where, yeah, he can still learn from it. But my question is he willing to learn from it? Will he ever learn from it? Will missing 80 games or 40 games next year be enough to deter him? I don't know. But sooner or later, you got to learn from your mistakes. You got to take accountability. And it's obviously he hasn't. And he hasn't learned. And maybe it's good for him from a personal standpoint to get a kick in the gonads or a kick in the head, or whatever, to say, hey, you're going to sit out next year. You're going to learn from this. We don't know what else to do from an NBA standpoint, but to tell you can't play. These are our rules, and you continue to break them. There's enough players on that team. He's got enough so-called handlers and, his support team or whatever, his posse, whatever you want to call it. There's got to be people there telling him, don't do this. Don't be a knucklehead. But it's like I heard this morning. People are afraid. They want to hang out with him. They want to enable him. And if they go to him and tell him not to do it, then they're going to tell him to get out of his circle. And they want to be in his circle, so they don't want to tell him to stop it. Who's going to be that person to tell him to knock it off? Obviously, his dad's not doing it. It's up to the NBA now. This is where we're going to see if this will change his mind, because I guarantee you, he's already been suspended by the team from all team activities. The NBA is going to step in, and they're going to probably tell him, look, if you don't, he's out at least, I would imagine he's going to get half a year. And to me, that's worth it. If he should maybe he'll get a full year. I don't know, but it's ridiculous. And I don't feel sorry for the guy. I'm sorry. Did I feel sorry for him back in March? Not really. But, I heard that, he's a kid. He's young. He's going to make mistakes. All right, whatever. We all make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I get it. But getting a second opportunity, all right, he got that second opportunity. And obviously, he didn't learn it, or his friends didn't learn it, his handlers, whatever, whoever he was with in that car flashing a gun. They took the Instagram video, even though it was deleted. It's out there. That's social media. If you don't know it by now, then I don't know what to tell you. But Ja Morant deserves the suspension. Maybe it'll be that wake up call. I hate to see anybody lose their job. I hate to see anybody get in trouble. But sooner or later, that's the only way that you're going to learn from this mistake is hit them where they hurt. If he truly wants to be that NBA superstar, that role model, will Nike suspend business with him? With that shoe that just came out, the Ja 1. I don't know. I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't buy it for my kids either. That's just too bad. But yeah, that's crazy. Well, all right, that's going to do it for the NBA. We're going to switch gears here. We're going to put the basketball away and talk a little bit about the Stanley Cup playoffs. They're getting down to the nitty-gritty. We've got one conference final matchup all set. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about MahlerBrosGolf.com. When you're golfing and the sun's beating down and, you're sweating, it's your golf game is suffering a little bit. I know what you want to do, and you can't do it, is take your shirt off to try to beat the heat. Well, I got to tell you something. I've got just the answer that'll help your golf game. I just know it mentally anyways, and it'll make you feel good. That's MahlerBros.com. They've got such a wide variety of great, stretchy, lightweight polos that will hug your body and will make you feel good and make you feel cool while you're on the golf course. And as we always say here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza, if you look good, you feel good. You feel good, you're going to play good. It's going to get you that mentality that, yeah, I can do it. I can hit that ball. I can hit that the extra 30 yards. I can make that 20-yard putt. I can put it within 2 feet of the hole to save that par. Let MahlerBros.com let you feel good in doing it. They've got all different kind of designs for their polos. You can look wild. They can see it 3 holes down with that loud, vibrant polo, or if you like me, more of a solid color, sleek looking, whatever, conservative look. It's whatever makes you feel good, and Mahler Bros has that. They've also got a great supply of T-shirts, tumblers, cups, you name it. Check out MahlerBros.com. It's on the bottom of the screen, MahlerBros.com. Use the promo code BELLYUP2, and you'll get 15% off your discount or off of your purchase. Again, that's MahlerBros.com. Can't say it enough. They're a great sponsor here on Belly Up Sports and also on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. MahlerBros.com. Use the promo code BELLYUP, and you'll get 15% off your discount. That's MahlerBros.com. All right, Stanley Cup playoffs. Let's get into those now as we roll on here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza, here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. We invite you to check out our YouTube channel, Captain Lou Sports Network. Subscribe to it. We've got all of our shows on archive. We got the games that we've done for Aquinas College Hockey, our ACHA Power Play podcast that we did over the last year. We will have that back as well coming up in the fall when their season kicks up. But again, thank you for joining us. We are powered up by Belly Up Sports. Stanley Cup playoffs, as we mentioned, Game 6 last night in Edmonton. It was Vegas and it was Edmonton. And wow, what a start to that game. 30 seconds in, I believe it was, Vegas took advantage of a turnover, and Skinner really nothing he could do on that one. Vegas jumps up 1-0, and then about a minute later, back-to-back goals by Edmonton. We're looking at a 2-1 game, 100 seconds into the game or something like that. And I'm thinking, holy cow, this is going to be a 10-9 shootout, an old 1980s style Edmonton playoff game back when they were playing the Red Wings in the Western Conference Finals, or the Prince, whatever it was back then, the Campbell Conference. But yeah, Vegas decided in the second period it was the Jonathan Marchessault show. A natural Hattie, 3 goals in the second period, and they jumped out to a 4-2 lead after 40 minutes and then got the empty net goal to clinch it. 5-2. Vegas dispatches of Edmonton in Game 6. They win it in 6 games. Canada's drought now. It's actually, that's a mistake. I should probably I will, just as I was reading that, let me edit that real quick for us here. Canada's drought now is at 30 for the Stanley Cup, as they had I was looking at the all-Canadian final that I predicted. The last time two teams played each other in the Stanley Cup finals from Canada was 1989 with Calgary and Montreal. But Canada's drought now hits 30 with the Canadiens, the last winning team back in 1993. Now, I read some things afterwards, and Edmonton didn't lose this series, okay? Oh, yeah, they lost it, but Vegas won it. More often than not, you look at, well, what didn't Leon Draisaitl do? What didn't Connor McDavid do? What didn't Skinner do in net? Blah, blah, blah. What did Vegas do? They overpowered them. This was a series of, most of them were blowout wins. One team dominated the other. But it seemed like, after the suspension with, Pietrangelo for Game 5, Vegas rallied around that. It was 2-2 going back to Vegas. And they came out and they took care of Edmonton at home in Game 5, and it was wild as you went in before the game. Edmonton was 4-0 after I'm sorry, Vegas was 4-0 after a loss. And Edmonton, they looked like they were primed to win, but Vegas, you got to give them credit. They call themselves the lovable misfits or whatever. I tell you, they're starting to peak at the right time. And Edmonton, we talk about the New York Knicks, the winning mentality. How about Toronto? Same thing. Edmonton now, they've got to learn how to win the big games, the big series. How much patience do you have with Edmonton, though? And, they've got, two of the best players in the game, if not, two of the top 5. Jack Eichel, though he came through for Vegas throughout the series. Marcia Schultz again with the hat trick. Mark Stone, what can you say about him? Love the grittiness. You talk about stepping up, coming through 2 back surgeries this year, being able to, get active and be able to contribute like he has in the playoffs. And, now they've got, they're going to await the winner of Game 7 between Dallas and Seattle. And that's tonight. What does, what Dallas team is going to show up? What Jake Ottinger team is going to show up? Ottinger, he's 0-1 in Game 7s. I think Dallas is 3-5 in Game 7 scenarios going into tonight. It's really going to be interesting to see. On the other side, you've got Jaden Schwartz 5-0 in Game 7s. Justin Schultz has never lost a Game 7. Dallas coach Peter DeBoer is 6-0 in Game 7. This will be just the second Game 7 for the Kraken. They beat Colorado, so they've played a Game 7. This is going to be fun tonight. Which team is going to show up? And that's the thing. You don't know. Joe Pavelski has played in 9 Game 7s. He's 6-3. Tyler Seguin 4-3. I mean, those are in the past. This is going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. What about Grubauer? You've got him against Ottinger. This is going to be just it's a coin toss tonight. It really is. How much is home ice going to matter? This year, it really hasn't. But the pressure, pressure's on both teams. Let's say it. You can talk. Dave Hackstall is 1-0 in Game 7s. Obviously, they've only played 1. So I don't know. I mean, you tell me. It's going to come down to goaltending. Obviously, in the old cliche is, who makes the first mistake or the last mistake? Is it going to go to overtime? I mean, so many different variables tonight in Game 7. That's what makes it great. And it's win or go home. And the way things are going, it'll probably go to overtime tonight. And the fortunate thing for us on the East Coast, it's at 8:00 and not 10:00. And I got to say this real quick about all the hullabaloo about the ESPN coverage last night here in the States for Game 7 or for the Edmonton game, starting at 10:00 for starters. Which I get it. A lot of people upset. I didn't make it through the whole game. I went to bed after the end of the second period, or I fell asleep. Here on the East Coast, I had to get up super early this morning for physical therapy on my foot recovering from surgery. But a lot of folks on the East Coast, and you didn't maybe get to stay up all the way to watch it. And then equally, everybody's a little pissed off because on ESPN, they split screened it with the baseball game that was a blowout. Well, what I don't get is everybody's acting like this is the first time something like this happened. And it doesn't just happen to the NHL. If they've got a game on first, I don't care if it's college football, MLB, whatever, college basketball, women's, whatever. If it runs over, then the other game, the late starting game, I don't care if it's game 7 or whatever, it's always moved to ESPN2 or ESPNU. TNT does it. You know, they start their game, they move it over to True TV, which is harder to get than going to ESPN2. I don't understand the complaining. You guys act like it's never happened before. You know, I get it. The ESPN coverage of the NHL has been abysmal. I mean, you know, they're trying to be too cutesy. They're trying to make it, they're copying maybe a little bit too much of the TNT coverage for the NBA, which is head and shoulders above everybody else as far as studio coverage. I don't get it. You know, not everybody can be Doc Emrick. You know, I love Doc, and he set the bar so high, and I think everybody thinks it should be that way. You know, and a lot of it, I think, falls on Bettman, but ESPN threw the money at him, and he took it. And you should have known going in, this is what the kind of coverage you're going to get. So, my God, yeah, it was split screen. You could have turned the next channel to ESPN2. They set it right on the tape, right during the ball game. The start of the game will be on ESPN2. We'll pick it up, you know, when the baseball game's over. Folks, it's not that hard to turn the channel. Come on. People like to complain just to complain. You know, everybody's a keyboard warrior, and I just don't get it. And come on, just let it go. Let it go. Let's focus on the games and not the coverage. I mean, you know, you're just going to I don't know what else to say on that. Florida took care of Toronto in Game 5 in overtime. You know, the improbable run continues. Florida, in my opinion, we'll talk about this in a second, with Bobrovsky, he's getting hot. And we've, you know, in years past, it's always been whoever's got the hottest goaltender usually makes that run, especially for a lower-seeded team. Well, Bobrovsky's now starting to make that come to fruition because he's playing great. And he stymied Toronto. And I don't know what else to say about Toronto. You know, where do they go from here? You know, they took a baby step by finally getting over the first round hump by dispatching of Tampa. You know, they run into a buzzsaw in Florida. You know, it was one of those things, be careful what you wish for. Florida took it to them. It was like they had Toronto on their heels throughout the whole series. You know, especially Game 3. That's the one that really stood out to me. Obviously, Game 1, you could say, all right, the emotion, you know, the adrenaline fell off, and they couldn't maintain it. All right. Well, you thought they would have won Game 2, and they played passive. Game 3, Game 3 is the one that just showed me that Toronto just does not have that killer mentality, and I don't know how they get it. They've got by far one of the more talented teams in the NHL. You look at Tavares, you look at Matthews, you look at Marner. You know, that just to name a few. They've got, you know, 3 of the top talented players in the league. I mean, where else do you go from here? You know, the defense to me isn't that bad. Goaltending, you know, obviously Samsonov getting hurt didn't help, but I thought Woll played good. But they played passive. Defensively in Game 3, you know, they weren't attacking. It was like they were holding back, and you know, Florida took advantage of it. You know, Maurice out-coached them. And I give credit to Paul Maurice. You know, I always question if he was the right guy to be a head coach, if he's a retread. Well, that retread's got Florida playing in the Eastern Conference Finals now. And what are they going to do in Toronto now? Is Dubas going to leave? Whatever. I mean, he put him in place. I don't get it. I mean, what else does Toronto need to do? That's going to be the big question this offseason. Baby steps aren't enough. What now? Are they going to say next year the Eastern Conference Finals is good enough? Those fans don't want that. I get it. But, you know, you talk about making coaching changes. Do they make another coaching change? I don't believe so. They got to go out and get goaltending. Is Samsonov going to be the answer next year? Would he have been the difference? I doubt it, because like I said, I didn't think Woll played that bad. But, you know, and the lethargic, lackadaisical effort at times just, again, proved the adage, you can't take any periods off. I don't care if it's a 7-game series. Momentum is so big, and Toronto it looked like, you know, that tired cliche of Florida wanting it more. It sure looked like it. And, and it looked like, Toronto it's like you could see it. It's almost like they just went, here we go again at the end of the first period. Uh, and in the end of the second period in that game 5, then they tied it up. They got the game tying goal. And I thought, okay, here we go. It was like, and that goal it was a no goal. They made the right call. They made the right call. And then, but it looked like all of a sudden they were defeated. Then they got that game time goal, and I thought, all right, here we go. But in overtime, again, it was like Florida. They wanted it more, and it's mind-boggling to me that they would say that. It's crazy. So now we got an Eastern Conference final. Carolina and Florida. We talk about it. Bobrovsky gaining momentum in net for the Panthers, and a very interesting matchup. We got 3 brothers going against each other. Eric and Mark Stahl for the Panthers, and then Jordan Stahl for the Hurricanes. That's going to be a nice little fun tidbit to watch in that series when that begins. But again, Florida's if you're looking at goaltending, Florida's is hot. Carolina's is steady. They've got Anderson and they've got Ranta. Bobrovsky, ever since he came in, he didn't start the playoffs, but he's got the hot hand. Who's got the more balanced team? Momentum against balance. I think Carolina is a more deep team, but so was Toronto and so was Boston. Boston was probably obviously they had the best record in NHL history for a single season. What did that get them? A first round exit. So now it's going to be. I think Carolina is going to win. I think this one could go to the distance, though. I really think it's going to go 7 games, and it's going to be fun to watch. So. Well, I can't wait for that to start out. And, it's, the NHL schedule makers, obviously the brass, they wanted a quote unquote big market team to be in the Stanley Cup finals in the East. You got Carolina and Florida. That to me is ironic. It's funny. But they're the 2 best teams right now, obviously playing Carolina steady all year, right up near the top. They took care of New Jersey. Like we said, New Jersey had a good run. They're another team. They've got to learn how to win. That winning mentality is so big. Rod Brindamore brought it as he's won as a player. We'll see if he can get Carolina back to the top of the mountain as a coach. I just think I like their balance. I got Carolina going in 7. So, but again, we've got a game 7 tonight, as we mentioned, Dallas and the Kraken in Seattle in Dallas, 8:00 tonight. Should be a dandy. The winner of that will take on Vegas, and then if it's Vegas and Dallas, oh my gosh, that's going to be one heck of a matchup. And one other take I want to bring out the game or the series between Edmonton and Vegas. What I love about that is now we're going to get a rivalry. If it hasn't already been built, now it's going to be taken to the next level. The handshake line thing with Draisaitl and Pietrangelo. Man, this just reminds me so much of Colorado and Detroit from back in the 90s. Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. The NHL needs that. I think pro sports need that. They don't need, the dirty play kind of rivalry, but they need a hated rivalry. I don't think we have that anymore like we used to. There's no love lost between Vegas and Edmonton. None. And I think that's healthy for the league. I don't know if we have that in any other sports right now. You don't have that with the Warriors and the Lakers, and that's fine. Whatever. It's the new age. I get it. It's they hang out together in the off season. They talk to each other before the game. You never used to see that back in the 70s, baseball and football. You didn't go and shake each other's hand 10 minutes before tip. You didn't talk to them. I mean, it's a different mentality now. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I prefer it to be where if you talk to them maybe in the off season, but not during the season or before a game like that. And these 2 teams don't like each other. There's no love lost. There's been some blood spilled. I think Evander Kane was lucky he didn't get suspended. And I know Vegas doesn't like him. And Pietrangelo, he got a game suspension. I get it why they did it. I don't disagree with it. I was surprised by it. I don't disagree with it. But yeah, there's no love lost between those 2 teams. And I love it. And I think that's what builds, a great rivalry. We need some of those. We don't have those rivalries like Detroit and Colorado, or, Montreal and Toronto, or Detroit and Chicago back in the day, or like even in the other sports either. It's just, I don't know. Guys are just too friendly. So, anyways, let's wrap up the show here. They had the schedule released last week. We talked about a little bit on Friday. I just wanted to kind of give, just something fun. Everybody is the eternal optimist. When the schedules are released, the offseason, everybody with the draft, everybody thinks they're going to win 15 games, go to the NFC title game, and, potentially, whatever. And, the division that's near and dear to my heart, the NFC North, with our Detroit Lions, they've you talk about hope springing eternal. They're the darlings right now. Everybody thinks they're going to dethrone the Green Bay Packers. All the odds makers have Detroit winning the division, and that's scary. It really is. But what I wanted to do real quick is kind of take a look at their schedules and give predictions on it. First of all, we'll take a look at Detroit's, and we'll just take a peek at it. And can they live up to the hype? I look at their schedule, and I look at Detroit's schedule. They start out, obviously, everybody's talking about the Chiefs. Do they deserve to be on the opening game of the year? And I think Mike Florio brought up a great point from NBC Football Talk in America or whatever. He said that game was going to draw huge numbers, no matter what. Whether you put the Eagles on there for the Super Bowl rematch or whatever, a game against Dallas, whatever. Detroit's going to bring in huge numbers that opening week, and which I agree totally. Can Detroit handle the hype? Now, even if they get blown out in that game, how does it affect them? If they lose a close one, if they win, how will they be able to handle it if they win? But I look at this schedule for Detroit. They start out with the Chiefs, then they've got their home to Seattle and the Falcons, then they go to Green Bay. Now, Seattle, are they as good as they were last year? If you look at them from what they did last year, this is going to be a tough start to the season. I could see Detroit very easily going 2-2, or maybe even 1-3. They go to Green Bay. Green Bay's down, but we'll look at Green Bay's schedule in a moment. They've got some winnable games to open up the year. Green Bay could potentially start out hot. Panthers and the Buccaneers, those are winnable games. So, Detroit could rebound. I could see 4-2 going to the Ravens. Come on. That would be a surprise if they won there. But then they've got winnable games, in my opinion, the next 4. This is where they can make home to the Raiders on Monday night, home to the Bears, home to the Packers. They could go 3-1, so get back to maybe like a 7-4 start. Then they got to go to the Saints and the Bears. Those are going to be, 1-1, I think, is being smart. That's 8-5. Home to the Broncos, a winnable game. They'd be 9-5. Then they got 3 tough games. If they can win one of they've got to be, in my opinion, 9-5 going into the last 3 games to get to 10 wins. Going to the Cowboys, who knows what the Cowboy team's going to show up. It's always tough. It's going to be on national TV. Then you're at the Vikings and then home to the Vikings. So 2 divisional games in 3 weeks. I could very realistically see a 10-7 record for Detroit. Now, and is that going to be enough to get them where they need to be? Is that going to be enough to win the division? I don't know. But here's my thing. And, I'll say the same thing about like a team like the New York Jets. They're in the spotlight now. They got what they want. Respect, whatever. Detroit fans for years saying we don't get any respect, blah, blah, blah. Detroit's on 4 nationally televised games 4 times. 3 of them on the road. Keep that in mind. They've got 1 game besides Thanksgiving. And that's going to be at home against the Raiders. So, it's time for Detroit to take that next step. I think the schedule sets up. I still think they can win 11 games. I could see 11-6. I think that would be enough to win the division this year. But I look at some of these other schedules. Green Bay, the odds makers have them at 7.5. Now, you know me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm not a Packer fan. All right. They've been my heated rival forever, since I could walk. Since my dad flipped my plate over and told me I'll never eat another dinner in our house again if I'm not a Lions fan, and I was 4 years old at the time. Let's take a look at the schedule for the Packers, all right? 2 winnable games off the top, at Chicago and at the Falcons, okay? They're on the road, I get it, but they're winnable road games. Then they're home to the Saints and the Lions. Now, let's face it, 3-1 is not an unrealistic expectation for the Packers. And this is a great start for Jordan Love to get, his feet under him. Then they're at the Raiders and Broncos. I know they're 2 road games, but I'm telling you that there's a chance. Then they're at the Vikings and the Rams. Those are winnable games at home too, in my opinion. So let's say out of those first 8 games, it's very realistic that Green Bay could go 5-3. That's so 7.5 is their over/under. Then the meat of their schedule, they're at the Steelers, at the Lions, home to the Chiefs. They got to go to the Giants and home to the Chargers. Okay, so that's 5 games right there. Let's say they go 2-3 there. So they're 7-5. That's realistic in my book. Then they've got Tampa at home. They're at the Panthers, at the Vikings, and versus the Bears. You tell me they can't go 2-2 in those last 4? So, I like to put a few shackles down on this. To me, Green Bay 7.5 over/under. That's way too low. And I'm telling you, I'm going to the bank. I'm taking the over on Green Bay. I really believe that they can get to 9 wins at least. Now, Minnesota for real, I don't know. They had won so many one-score games last year. What were they, 11-0? We all know that's not going to happen again. I look at their schedule. I mean, they open up home to the Buccaneers, probably a win. They go to Philadelphia. We'll call that a loss. They've got the Chiefs at home, the Panthers on the road, the Bears on the road. I mean, in their first 6 games, they could be easily 4-2. 49ers, that's going to be a toss-up. You never know going to Green Bay. Falcons, a good chance to win that one. Home to the Saints, home to the Bears, at the Broncos. That 3-game stretch right there, very winnable games. 4-game stretch right there. They could very easily go 4-0 there. Then they're at the Raiders and at the Bengals. The Vikings, the end of their season is difficult. At the Bengals, they go to LA or to Vegas, which that's a winnable game. But then all 3 of their last games are divisional games at home against the Lions and the Packers, and then against the Lions in Detroit. Tough rivalry games. They could win 2 of those maybe. Minnesota's looking at 11 wins. Maybe I'm being a little too optimistic, but then I look at Chicago. Now, Chicago last year they were in last, and I know they're a young team. I know, and maybe again, my NFC North bias is coming through on this one, but hear me out. Let's take a look at the schedule real quick. Open up with the Packers at home. To me, that's a winnable game. Tampa Bay is not going to set the world on fire, but it's a road game. Then they're at the Chiefs. All right, let's say 1-2, maybe 0-3. Okay, Broncos at home, at the Commanders, Vikings at home, Raiders at home. I'm telling you, they could win 3 of those games. So all of a sudden, you're looking at 3-4. Then they got the Chargers and at the Saints. Okay, 3-6. And they're home to the Panthers. They'll win that one. I don't know. I mean, the end of the year sets up really well for Chicago to win their last 3 games, or 2 of the last 3. Home to the Cardinals, home to the Falcons. At Green Bay could be difficult. They've got the Lions at home. Over the years, they've had pretty good success against the Lions. At the Browns is going to be tricky. I think the Browns are going to be a little bit better than people give them credit for. The Browns' schedule is, we can look at that later on in the year. We will do that. But I look at that and I think, man, they've got a chance. The Browns with that easy schedule could win 10, 11 games. I think they're going to be a surprise team in the AFC. But anyways, I could realistically see 3 teams in the NFC North with 9 or 10 wins. I could see the Packers doing it, and I could see obviously the Lions and the Vikings. I just, the way the schedule flows out for Detroit, the divisions that they play outside of their own aren't the greatest. So I'm telling you, the way it shakes out, call me crazy, but right now the best bet that I see is the over for Green Bay at 7.5. And I think that they've got a young enough core, and it's all going to hinge on Jordan Love. And they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. So if he's got any motivation at all, it's going to be this year to do well. And I think he can. And we'll wrap it up with, again, another look at the Jets. The only reason I bring this up is it kind of reminds me of what the Lions and the Jets are kind of in the same boat this year. They're both, I don't want to say going in uncharted waters, more so for Detroit, but the Jets haven't been relevant in a decade. The Lions, they've kind of knocked on the door of relevancy a few times, gotten in the playoffs, 3 years out of the last decade. They've lost each game, but this is their opportunity. The Jets are going to be the media darlings all year. They're going to be on, if they're not on national TV, they're on the late window. I think they've only got 2 1 o'clock games, if I'm not mistaken. But can that young team handle it? You can have Aaron Rodgers. I get it. He can bring in character guys like Reggie Cobb, and he's got Alan Lazard. I don't know if Mercedes Lewis might come there. Who knows? Mason Crosby, Chester Marcole. I don't know. But can that young crew of players, they're talented, but can they handle all the pressure? And can they handle being in that spotlight? It's winning's not something that you gain overnight. Few people can do it. It's a process, and I don't know if the Jets can handle it. They've got a tough schedule, and it could very easily blow up in their face. They could go 2-4 or 1-5, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Well, hey, wow, this hour's flown by. We're going to wrap it up here shortly. Want to remind you, we've got a great group of guests coming up this week. On Wednesday, we're going to be joined by Rod Peterson from the Rod Peterson Show. Voice of Canadian sports for a lot of years. Want to talk to him, and he's obviously big voice in hockey. He's been around the league a long time. He just had his 1,000th episode of the Rod Peterson Show. He's going to join us on Wednesday. We're going to talk Stanley Cup with him. Also like to kind of gauge the state of the CFL. They're coming into their season here pretty quick. They're going to start their regular season, and things going on in Calgary with the new stadium being built up there. And we'll kind of get his take on what's going on with the NBA and the world of or the NFL and the world of sports. He's going to be gracious with his time. He's going to join us right at the top of the hour Wednesday at 10 o'clock. And then we promised Ryan Schuling last week from the lead producer for 630 KNOW in Denver, but he's going to be on with us. He's was a local radio personality for a lot of years here in the Michigan area. We're going to talk transfer portal in college sports. And we're also going to talk Colorado football with Prime Time, Coach Prime, and what the effect that's had in the Denver area and Colorado football. And also, we'll get his take on the Denver Nuggets now getting into the Western Conference Finals. What the buzz is. Is it taken off in Denver? Because we all know they run under the radar in Denver for sure. In the league, rather, not Denver. I apologize. In the league, they don't get the media hype that the Los Angeles and New York teams get, justified or not. And on Friday, Mitch Bernstein from the Burn with Mitch podcast, he's a regular on the show as well. We're going to talk NBA or Major League Baseball with him. And so really looking forward to talking with Mitch. It's the quarter poll for Major League Baseball coming up with Memorial Day. We're going to see who's hot and who's not. And, we'll talk to him as well. So anyways, that's going to do it. Oh, real quick, melancholy fare thee well to Doyle Brunson, Texas Dolly, the godfather of professional poker, passed away yesterday at the age of 89. He was a mainstay on all the shows. You could watch him on High Stakes Poker. One of the trailblazers for professional poker, the World Series of Poker out in Vegas. Saw him on all the shows. A great ambassador to the game. So wise, even amongst his years as he got older, always fun to watch him. What a personality. The poker world and the world in general lost a great personality in Texas Dolly. Doyle Brunson passed away at the age of 89. So we want to say our condolences to him and his family. Also, Denny Crum, a legendary coach of the Louisville Cardinals for 30 years. Probably if not one of the most underrated coaches in college basketball history, coaching in the coaching profession as a whole, passed away at the age of 86. I believe he was a coach for 30 years with Louisville. Got him a national title, always in national prominence, was Denny Crum. And again, our condolences to his family as he passed away at the age of 86. All right, everybody. We will see you Wednesday. Looking forward to it, 10 a.m. Eastern time. You're on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Thanks for joining us on the Captain Lou Sports Network here on YouTube. And again, we are powered up by Belly Up Sports. check out our website, bellyupsports.com. And they've got a complete list of all of our podcasts and, of course, all of our stories that we have on the website. We've got a great group of guys and gals working behind the scenes and, of course, in front of the camera and with the mighty pen. So we want to say thanks to Belly Up for letting us be a small part of the family. And again, we're sponsored as always here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza by MahlerBros.com. Mahler Bros Golf. It's where you need to go for all your apparel to look good, feel good, and play good. That's MahlerBros.com. Use the promo code BELLYUP for 15% off your discount, or your purchase, rather. That's MahlerBros.com. All right, everybody. Hey, keep your heads up. Keep your feet moving. Keep your sticks down. And as always, keep your minds open. Good day, everybody. We'll see you Wednesday. Thanks for joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza on the Captain Lou Sports Network. So long.